what I like to do is to start off by just talking about what are the themes or the focal points for the release. Every release that we do at CaseWare, we normally have certain themes that we're using in for the release. And we normally go through a process of prototyping and validating with customers, and many things that you see being released in the product today was probably being prototyped or tested by customers maybe a year ago. And a lot of things that will come up maybe a year from now, they're actually being validated and tested with customers today. There are three things that we're trying to do for anti-money laundering solution here. One is that every time that we talk to compliance departments or compliance professionals, they're saying, listen, we need this to be less expensive, less costly for us, and we need it to be easier. The regulations are changing all the time. There are new demands being put on us. There's really a lot of visibility to very senior stakeholders in our companies, and we really can't afford to be sanctioned or fined. Another thing that we're also seeing is where companies are asking us to improve the way that we go about detecting suspicious activity, make it smarter, make it more intuitive. And we have introduced some really cool features that's going to help you with that, and some strong capabilities that's going to resonate with you. And another thing, the third thing that we were focusing on here is, okay, fine, you get an alert, there's an issue, there's a transaction that was being blocked. How do you investigate it, and how do you investigate it very quickly? And not just that, but after I've done the investigation, why do you then ask me to do the same thing with a similar type of alert again? Can't you then make the same decisions for me? So those are some of the things that we focused on. How are we going to make your investigations more thorough? We're doing smarter detection of suspicious activity, and we're making your compliance efforts a lot easier and more cost effective. So those are the three themes for the release. Now, for the broader AML compliance platform, we're just sharing this diagram with you, or this image with you, and you'll get it in the documents that Beverly will share with you after the event. But we build all our solutions on this sort of a platform. The user experience is a big part of it, making sure that you're getting all the visualizations and dashboards and reporting. 2 weeks ago, we were visiting a number of customers, and they were saying, they wanted to see more reporting. They wanted to be able to track their KPIs a lot better. And we were able to show them a lot of the new capabilities that we have added in the technology, because they were on an earlier version, and they were really impressed with what we're doing in terms of our dashboarding, reporting, our visualization, or KPI tracking. So that was very good. One of the things that we have also done is that we have really kind of ramped up what we're doing with customer due diligence. So we've always done sanction screening, and that's there, but we've added a really important feature where we're allowing you to have an API where you're onboarding customers. We're actually going to be screening and profiling those customers in real time. And this is a huge advantage for many customers, because you're now going to be able to do those checks and balances at the onboarding stage, as opposed to be doing it after the fact. And later on, we'll talk a little bit more about that. The next thing that we have started doing primarily for customers in North America is that we're now able to do identity verification. So when someone comes into, say, the casino, or they come into the bank, you can actually validate the identification provided, whether it's a social security number, or it's a driver's license, or whatever other identification is provided. We've continued to ramp up what we're doing around risk profiling. So those are the things that we're doing in the due diligence side. On the transaction monitoring side, more and more of our customers are asking us not to just monitor the transaction, but to start screening transactions. And so we have started doing more real-time screening of transactions, where we can make a decision whether or not we're going to allow the transaction to go through, whether or not we're blocking it for investigation, or we're just raising an alert for the transaction to be investigated. There are some really cool things that we're doing with fraud detection in a number of different industries, and that's good. On the regulatory reporting side, this release focuses a lot on making regulatory reporting seamless, meaning trying to take over as much of the work as possible and doing the actual reporting for you. It's really quite extensive and very seamless, and we're going to show you as we get into the presentation. Beyond that, we continue to improve what we're doing within the investigations side. So we have a really cool feature that we added called Enterprise Search, which is going to help you with your investigations. There is some decision learning that we have introduced, the first level of decision learning in our workflow and case management, which is really exciting. And of course, we continue to do case management and workflow. On the analytics side, we've really expanded the technology base in terms of what we're doing with analytics. We continue to do rules-based analytics, but more importantly, we have added a lot more advanced analytics capabilities. Right. So there's one other thing I'd like to talk about before I start getting into the details of the release, and that's data management. So many of our customers, especially MSBs, they struggle with getting that single view or single version of a customer, and we've been helping them a lot using some really great tools within our platform that helps you to aggregate customer data and create a single instance of the customer so that you can identify things of store jumping or location jumping, and also structuring of transactions a lot better, because if the person is going to different locations and using the different identifications, it becomes really challenging for you. So we're doing a lot of great things with data management, improving data quality, and a lot of great stuff there. So overall, this is what the platforms is looking like. We continue to provide you with multiple deployment options. So customers are pretty excited by that. So what I'm going to do next is go into the specific things that we want to present. The capabilities that we want to present for AML. Now, the 5.4 release also includes a number of other enhancements that we've provided in the product, but those are not specifically related to AML. There's going to be another webinar on Thursday, and that webinar is going to be talking more about our continuous auditing product, our continuous controls monitoring product, and specifically what we're doing in terms of financial crime management on the procurement side, procurement, P-card monitoring, T&E monitoring, and a lot of enhancements that we have done there as well. So if you have the opportunity, or if you can join us for that webinar as well, that's going to be really cool. We have Mike Kaluri and Mike Gilbert that's going to be presenting that one as well. So try and see if you can join them. Okay. So here we go. So the main things that we're going to go through is our Go AML enhancement, and our Go AML is used by a lot of regulators all over the world, and it's a major enhancement for us to be able to provide this, because now we can allow our customers to report in many jurisdictions, not just the US, not just Canada, not just the UK or Australia, but there's a lot of jurisdictions that are using Go AML as it is sponsored by the United Nations, right? Enterprise Search is a really nice feature. We're going to show you what that looks like. The real-time onboarding due diligence is important, and that's what I mentioned earlier. Get into things earlier, detecting problems before they happen. Do not onboard a customer if that customer is going to be a high-risk individual, making those decisions up front as opposed to chasing compliance later on. So again, if any of you have heard any of our presentations, we're always saying our hope in working up with our customers is we want to make sure that you're ahead of compliance and that you're not chasing compliance. The workflow decision learning is the genesis of something that we're going to be doing a lot more in the application, and we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about our advanced analytic models that are now available to customers in this release as well. So let's go through the Go AML and the regulatory reporting enhancements. So if you think about what it is that you do for regulatory reporting, you're detecting different transactions or different activities that may be reportable. For Go AML, the terms that you're using is TTR and STR. If you're in the US, you recognize it as CTR and SAR. So CTRs and SARs, right? So it's the same concept. So what you're doing is that you're detecting any activity that is potentially reportable as per the regulations that exist in your jurisdiction. What we're doing is that we're using data analytics to detect these activities. Then we're aggregating all the data and compiling all the data that's needed to fill out the regulatory report. So the regulatory reports tend to be very tedious. It could be hundreds of fields. It takes forever to get it done. What we're doing is that once we detect an activity that is reportable, we go and aggregate all the data to fill out all the different fields in the report. We auto-complete the report, whether it's a threshold report or a suspicious activity report or a suspicious transaction report. We are auto-completing that, right? And then not just that, but if your data is an issue, meaning the data that we got from your systems to auto-complete the report, if it is failing the regulations validation rules, we will actually point that out to you to say, yes, I know you told me to use this tax ID, but when I used it, it's supposed to be 9 digits, it's 12 digits, or it's 5 digits. There's an issue with it, right? So we're reapplying all those rules. Then from there, after the validation is complete and it's good, we actually will generate the file for submission to the regulator. Now, in the United States, we are doing the submission all the way through to the regulator, meaning all the way to FinCEN. In many of the jurisdictions that are using Go AML, they're not allowed to do that. So we're generating the actual XML that you need to submit, and then the user will go into the portal and submit it, okay? But everything else we're handling. So if you think about it, that's probably 99% of the work right there that's being handled by CaseWare. You don't have to do the work. So this is a huge win for compliance departments because it is so tedious to get this done. So some of the main things that we're doing here is for the threshold reports, we believe that we can submit and auto-submit or auto-create the XML for 100% of these, whether it's structured or not, we're able to do that. And that means that your compliance team is not going to be saddled with trying to fill out these threshold reports that can really be quite tedious, especially if it involves many transactions. In our situation, we auto-complete, we auto-create all the transactions that are involved in the threshold report, and you don't have to do anything. For the suspicious transaction reports, it is similar. The only thing that is a little bit different is that there's a reason and an action narrative that needs to be included in the report. However, from the analytics itself, we can actually create a reason and action narrative for you. And if you think the narrative is good, you don't have to change it. You can just go ahead and submit that. So in most instances, you don't have to really change anything for the STRs. You should be able to just go ahead and submit it. If you have to change it, as you are making those changes, we're validating everything that you're doing. We're double checking everything and making sure that everything is okay. So when you think about that from end to end, we're completing everything and it should be really seamless, and that will take care of a lot of the work. So back to the theme, making it easier, making it less costly. If you think about completing hundreds of these reports and every one of them normally would have taken you an hour, then look at the cost savings that you're looking at right there. So this is what some of the STRs would look like for Go AML. What we did is that we actually made it a little bit more user-friendly. because some of the Go AML reports, they are very nested and you can get lost. So what we did is that we pulled it out into sections, and then from there you're able to go through and handle all of the sections. We're doing all the validations. Again, we talked about that. And you can see if there are errors, you can actually see it on the screen. So as you can see here, we're saying, hey, you're missing the type, address is missing, or country is missing. So you can see it's telling you where the different errors are. If you click on any of these hyperlinks, it will take you exactly to that field in the report for you to complete it. Another thing to notice is that here we're also allowing you to just validate one-off to update your validation. In some instances, we are also allowing you to generate a PDF. And of course, you can save your updates. So you can work on the report, leave it, go back, open it, and continue working on it again. Now, why is the PDF option important? When we met with a number of customers and we were validating this approach, one of the things that they said is that, well, Andrew, what happens if I don't have all the information that the template is asking for? What do I do? And in those instances, you still have to submit the report within a certain timeline. So we would normally suggest in those instances that you go ahead and generate a PDF report and do a manual submission to get around some of those challenges, right? So that's why we also give you that option. So some of the other things that we did with this feature is, for those of you that are doing FinCEN reporting, we did some updates for you as well. We automate the file attachments. So for example, if you're an MSB and you're doing a suspicious activity report, there's a requirement for you to submit, I think, 30 days of transaction history around that customer. That is fully automated as well. So in our system, we will automate that generation of the history and attach it to the SAR automatically for you. If there are other documents and so on that you want to get attached, if there's a logical way for us to find those documents, then we will automatically attach all of those and include them in the SAR when you're doing the submissions, right? And again, what we're doing too is that we're making sure that, you know, there's full traceability for everything that you're doing. So we've done some enhancements to the way the workflows work. All right, now think about this, right? When you're doing the regulatory reporting, it's a major undertaking. And so there's a lot of people involved in getting this right. What we're doing is that we're streamlining that process by introducing a workflow, and that workflow will determine deadlines. You know, at different states, can you lock the report at a certain stage and prevent someone from actually editing it? So if you see, this is configurable. So all of the different states in the workflow that is going with the STR, you can decide if I want it to be editable. Is this a workflow state that I can actually do a submission? If it is accepted, where does it go? If it is rejected, what happens to it? So again, all of that is something that you can actually create, and you can decide how you want the whole thing to work. So you could have a state where initially the initial report is being done in the branches, and then when it's done, then it comes to compliance for review, and then compliance from there says, hey, this is good, this is ready for submission, and then it probably goes to the person that normally handles all of the submissions, right? So that's what I'm saying, is that the software has to think about that. It's not just about generating the report, but we have to think about how is it going to be operationalized. When you're talking about hundreds of people involved in the completion, the validation, you know, and making sure that you can meet the different timelines and deadlines stipulated by the regulator. So this is something that we have made some improvements to as well. Okay, so in truth, that's what we've done with the regulatory reporting. It's a tedious task for most of you, and what we're trying to do is to just make sure that we can automate it as much as possible. All right. The next item that we have introduced in the application is something called enterprise search. So any of you that have used the application before, you would know that the way that we were searching in the application before was not as intuitive as we would like it to be. And it wasn't like a Google search, you know, and everybody is accustomed to that. Everybody wants to be able to just type in Andrew and find Andrew. So that's what we did. We introduced a Google-like search in the application, and it's like really fast. When we were doing the testing, we tested with up to 10 million alerts, cases, and reg reports in the deployment, and you were getting like immediate sub-second type responses at the same time. This really quick, really sophisticated search technology. However, this is something I want to point out. It's not just searching your alerts, your cases, and your regulatory reports, but it is even able to search beyond that. So you can use the same technology and attach it to other sources of data and facilitate that search. So in 5.4, what we have done is that we have also included in the search the export control list, which means that any kind of dual use kind of products and any kind of military use products, you can search to see if that's included. So if you wanted, in our search interface, you can actually go in and search and say, hey, tell me about ammonium nitrate. You know, is this something that we need to be reporting on? Is this something that we need to be aware of? Something like that. So you're able to do that. Potentially, this technology can also be connected to other internal documents or any internal data source, whether it is structured or unstructured data. So this is kind of what it looks like. There's a search bar that's going to be on the top right-hand side of the application, and you're able to just go in and just go ahead and just type any word that you want. So what are the use cases? Let's say that I am looking for any mention of a customer called Stacy Valdez. I can just go in and just type Stacy Valdez, and what it will do, it will search through all my alerts, all my cases, all my regulatory reports, and tell me if I found any instance of Stacy Valdez. So this is, I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see what it looks like. But here you see I typed Stacy and immediately just went in and it says, hey, here's a case where we have an active investigation going. This is the case ID. Brad Jones is working on it. This is a customer that's involved. And by the way, there's a second case that's involved here. And the first one was investigating a collusion with someone else. And this one was just doing some investigations around the level of SAR activity being filed for the customer. But beyond that, you could see that we can search in different scenarios and see alerts that involve Stacy. And you see it searching different field names. So it tells you the field. If it's even in the comments or the attachments, it will find it as well. So you can see any of these, by the way, you can just click on it and just open it. If it's a case, you click on it, it opens. If it's an alert, the same thing. If it's a reg report, the same thing. And now one of the things that we also did with this is that we also introduced the whole concept of an export control list. So if you go into that search and you type you know, ammonia or whatever, then you'll see any hits or any mention in the export control documents that mention that. If you type stuff like missile or whatever, you'll see that also coming up on the military list as well. And that's very important. So very easy to use. Beyond that, what we did is that we went further and we allowed you not just to search, but to filter your searches. So you're able to go in and you're able to say, I only want to see work items or only want to search cases. You know, I want to see things that are only open. I want to see things that have comments or attachments. And then beyond that, there's tons of different functionality here where you can, you know, generate additional filters. I want to look in result sets that are only these result sets, or scenarios that are these scenarios. And as you're doing that, this is all changing at the same time. So extremely powerful capabilities being added to your investigations. Anytime that you get an alert, by the way, and you open that alert, there will also be a search bar in the alert itself for you to then say, hey, this alert was about Andrew Simpson, but hold on, who is that joint account holder? Is that Mark James? let's see if there's any other mention of Mark James anywhere, you know, or, oh, we see that the employee that did this had the user ID B James or B Jones. You know, could I search to see if there are any other alerts for that user coming up in the system? You just go in and you search B Jones, and everything that B Jones touched will come up as well. So it's a very good investigative tool. And apart from that, helps you to find things in the application much more seamlessly. So this is a big part of the improvements of 5.4, and we're really excited about it. Initial users that tested this, that did the alpha testing and validated this with us, they're all very excited about it. So yeah, we're hoping that everyone is going to be really pumped about this one. All right, so the next thing I wanted to touch on is real-time onboarding due diligence. Now, in our platform, we have been doing lots of work with real-time integrations. We do real-time screening of wires and drafts. We've been doing that for a while. Now, this is an expansion of our real-time capability. We're getting more and more customers asking us to do this. And we had a couple of customers that did the prototypes for this over a year ago, and they absolutely loved it. It made a big difference in their business. So they would onboard, say they're onboarding tens of thousands of customers every year. When they're onboarding the customer, we're doing all of the due diligence at the same time. So if you're typing in your CRM system or your onboarding system, whatever it is, as you're typing it in, we're taking that information, and in real time, we're coming back to you and we're saying, hey, hold on, this person is on a sanctions list, or hold on, the ID that you're providing for this user is not valid, you know, or anything like that. Some customers even go beyond that, by the way. And what they've asked us to do is to, when we give them, they provide more than just like name, date of birth, and so on, address. You know what they do? They're also providing us with, you know, information that allows us to do segmentation for the customer. So profession, age, you know, gender, things like that. And what we are doing with all of that, or expected cash activity, you know, how many deposits, how many withdrawals, things like that. Or if it's an entity, then it will say what industry and things like that. We take those and we actually do the segmentation for those customers, and then we match their expected activity or whatever other information they're giving us, and we use that to influence the onboarding risk score. So that's like really cool, because it means that you're not just sitting and waiting on a customer service person to make these decisions. We're actually taking over and making a lot of those decisions for them and doing it in a consistent way, right? Again, back to what we said, earlier detection, making things smarter, making things smoother, making things less costly. If you think about this, the compliance team is not going to be investigating customers that were onboarded, and now, you know, later on when we do a screening of the customer, we realize that there is a problem. Now this is saying, no, you can't onboard that customer. So what the system will do is that it will send back a notification to your CRM system and say, hey, or your onboarding system and say, we're going to block this customer. At the same time, this application, it could be even an application, we could block it. At the same time, we're sending an alert to your compliance team to say there was an attempt to onboard Andrew Simpson at this branch in Atlanta, and it will say we blocked the application process for the following reason, because Andrew is a high-risk individual based on these parameters. The compliance team can do their own investigation, and they can say, all right, we're going to confirm the block, or they can say, no, based on our investigations, we're going to override the block and release the process. They make that decision in CaseWare, and we communicate that decision back to the onboarding system. So if the regulators come in at a later date, they can see the full evidence of everything. And we're also keeping a track of all the requests that came to us. So if you onboarded 20,000 customers, yep, all 20,000 will be there. And if we blocked 10, we'll say these 10 are the ones that we blocked. Okay. So this is kind of what we're doing, and it's going to make a huge difference in terms of reducing your risk levels as an organization, not just reducing your risk levels, but just being more proactive. Again, getting ahead of your compliance challenges, not chasing it, Get away from chasing, get ahead of it. Okay, so that's a real-time API. We still will do the onboarding, and one of the things that we've done with the onboarding as well, the periodic, is if we do a periodic screening. So, all right, you onboarded Andrew Simpson, and at that time when you onboarded Andrew Simpson, everything was great. And then now Andrew Simpson is turning up when we do a periodic screening of all the customers. He's turned up as a high-risk individual. When that happens, we have the option to also send that message back to your onboarding system or your customer or your CRM system and say, hey, this is what's going on with this customer. And then if you want, you can make a decision to block activity on that customer, and then at the same time trigger an investigation in compliance. Okay. All right, next thing that we wanted to talk about is the decision learning around workflows. So this is a feature that we're doing the first release of it. So this is the first release around this. And when we spoke to customers, most customers said, all right, I like the idea, but I don't want you to go overboard with it. And I'll tell you why. All right, so this is the idea. If you are in compliance and there's a wire transfer going through and it's going to a high-risk destination, you know, we all know the different countries that are classified as high risk, right? And say it's going to Andrew Simpson, and you consider him to be a PEP, or you consider him to be a high risk individual based on whatever other way you're measuring it. Let's say that's happening, right? So you looked at it, and based on the alert that came in, you said, okay, I'm confirming that we're blocking that transaction, blocked it. All right, let's say someone then goes in and say, I want to go ahead and push through that transaction again. Why should it then come back to compliance to make the same decision? Nothing has changed, everything is the same. So Andrew is still a high-risk individual. Nothing has changed about the customer. The destination that it's going to, same thing. Maybe you blocked it based on the amount, it's the same thing. If that's the case, why send it back to compliance to make that decision again? We can learn from that previous decision. Or if there's a consistent set of decisions that you're making, we can learn from that through what we call training. So, so we can go through and train a model to pick that up, and then we can start making those decisions, right? So if we feel that there's an alert that comes in and we know we have learned sufficiently how to handle that alert, the system will take over that decision for you. And I pause because every time we say that, then our compliance customers, they're like, that sounds good, but that sounds a little risky. So what we have decided to do with it is it's highly configurable. So you can decide, what data do you want to be involved in the learning, and what data do you want to incorporate in the model that will break that decision. But this is a really exciting genesis of this type of technology that we're introducing in the application. And to be honest, you're going to see more and more of it in the future. But again, it is still dependent on our customers to what extent they want to use it, right? But at a minimum, I would say when you're doing your implementations or you're doing your upgrades, allow the consultants to do the most obvious things. So for example, if a transaction came in and you said, an alert came in and you said it's a false positive, nothing has changed about the customer, nothing has changed about the alert, nothing, and you get another alert, pretty much almost the same thing on the same customer, then you could you could say, I want the model to just go ahead and say that's a false positive. So don't bother to send that to me. I would suggest that you at least start with that. And this is something that you'll get more comfortable with as time goes on. And by the way, the more decisions you make in the application, then is the better we get at starting to take over and make some of these decisions for you. Again, cheaper, you know, making it cheaper for you to actually be compliant and not just chasing alerts, but really kind of allowing the application to be sophisticated enough to help you with those decisions. So it's a really nice feature, and we have some customers that are starting to use it already in their from their beta program and their prototyping. So, you know, let's see how that works out for you. Okay. The next thing that we'd like to do is to talk about some of the advanced analytics that we have introduced in the application. So, you know, look, to be honest, everyone that's on this call, on this webinar, you're familiar with how things are changing. Rules-based analytics used to be great for a lot of you, just not that great anymore. But some of you also may have read a blog that I talked about, you know, that I still believe that there is a role that rules-based analytics will still play all the time. And therefore, I still think that, and we're going to show you a model in a little bit that shows you the rules, how we use rules-based with anomaly detection, and we're going to show you a little bit about that. But one of our directors here, you know, he's always saying, but Andrew, the thing is with advanced analytics is that we want to make sure that you can, it's a way to know the unknowns, you know, not knowing exactly what you're looking for, but finding a way to say that this is an outlier, or this is an anomaly, and this is suspicious. So what we're doing is that we're saying the data that you know, data that you absolutely are aware of, we know exactly how to use that. The data that you don't know, using more data, pulling things externally, and you see in our application, we're starting to use more and more external sources of data to enrich our analytics and enrich the insights, right? So what we're doing with that is that we're starting to look at a lot of anomaly detection. So being able to say, hey, this customer activity is normally pretty consistent, and all of a sudden they're operating their accounts in a way that's completely inconsistent. You know, so wait, the pattern has changed. We used to use words pattern and so on, but the behavior on the account has changed. Another thing too is that you also want to see if you have a cash intensive business and it's a retail store, you know, just a simple storefront, a mom and pop shop, you know, a simple shop like that, and it's in the same mall as everyone else, and they're both selling the same things and all that kind of stuff. And that business carries in 10 times the cash of any other business that is in the same segmentation. Then while it's not an anomaly for that business in of itself, but it is an anomaly when compared to its peers. You see that? So then those are the kind of things that we're trying to bring to the table to give you the kind of insights and intelligence that you need to pick up more accurately any type of suspicious activity, any type of fraudulent activity, and most of the fraud implementations prevention implementations that we're doing today are based on these models, by the way. Okay, so what we're doing is that we're with this version, we're deploying more advanced analytic models. Primarily, we're doing anomaly detection. There's a bit of predictive in some of the implementations, but of course, none of this is done without any kind of segmentation or clustering. And another thing that we're also doing a bit of is on the link analysis side. And that's really a lot in some of the fintech clients that we have and MSB clients that we have, where persons have kind of set up their own networks within their network. So we're picking up a lot of those things as well. So as what we have also seen is that as the models are being used more and more, and persons start to work through the alerts or the cases, then we start to see that the models start to perform a lot better. So what are the benefits of that is that if you think about it, some of you would have had situations where we came in and we built out, say, 40 scenarios for you. We built 40 different rules-based analytics for you. That takes a while. What we're trying to do is to have less of those, just the high impact ones, and focus a little bit more on getting some advanced analytic models to complement the analytics process. And I'm going to show you how we move the two, or we put the two together using a scoring engine and get better results for you, right? So what actually is in the software today is that we have introduced a new advanced analytic engine within the application. So before you would have had a rules-based engine, now we've introduced an advanced analytics engine within the application. And for those of you that are, you need to do, 500 million transactions or 3 billion transactions, we also have the ability to extend that into Hadoop as well. All of this, by the way, will work in real time. So whatever we build, whenever we build those models can evaluate transactions in real time. And what we're also doing is that the case management process that we take the alerts through, or the cases through, that feeds back into the machine learning for these models, right? So when you move all of that stuff together, this is kind of the main thing that we're really kind of pushing to our AML customers, is just better anomaly detection through great segmentation and classification, and being able to identify outliers much more effectively. By using that plus our insights from rules-based, what you do is that you end up with a fused approach. That fused approach looks like this. All our rules-based analytics that we're implementing, all the scenarios, the models, and we take all of that with the information that we get back from our advanced analytic models, and we fuse that into a bit of a scoring engine. Beyond that, another thing that we do is that we're now starting to also consider the customer risk score. So if I'm a low risk customer and you're a high risk customer, and both of us have the same suspicious activity going on our accounts, you may have a situation where the person that is low risk, we may decide to just investigate the transaction. Still allow it, but investigate it. The person who is high risk, we might decide, no, we're going to block the transaction and also investigate it. So we're also now considering the customer risk score. If it's in some instances, what we can also do is just continue to monitor it. So although we raise an alert around the activity, we don't actually assign it to someone to investigate. And again, all of the insights from the actions taken in the investigation stage flows back into the models. And of course, we continue to do our reporting. So that's what we're doing in terms of advanced analytics at this stage for customers. So 5.4 supports that. That's something that you're going to be able to incorporate in your AML program when you do the upgrade. So it's really cutting edge and it's really exciting. So I know all of you must be like, really can't wait to do this upgrade and get going, right? So what are some of the key takeaways? We're really supporting more jurisdictions. We're seeing that, especially the fintech customers, what we're seeing with them is that they have to do reporting across many jurisdictions just based on the nature of their business. And sometimes you'll have a single set of transactions that when you merge them together, then they're suspicious, but it hits several jurisdictions. How do you support that? Again, we're trying to just kind of reduce the workload on the compliance team, let you do the things that is really important for you, the investigations, understanding how well the compliance program is doing, focusing on introducing and implementing stronger controls. That's kind of where we're getting, right? We're also, like, again, bringing a lot of the compliance process earlier in your onboarding process, so you're not chasing, you're not going to detect that this is a high-risk individual later on. You can detect it right now, right? And we're really excited about this, guys. We really want some of you to really embrace it and try it and see how well it works for you. But we're really excited about what we're doing in terms of decision learning Let's see if that's going to be able to take a lot of the work away from you. The advanced, the search feature as well is really cool. You're going to love it. It's going to be a main part of what you do as an investigator in the application today. And yeah, bring in advanced analytics for us to detect suspicious activity sooner by fusing it with some of our rules-based analytics to make it more accurate. So again, these are the main key takeaways that we're bringing in this release.